The Miami Dolphins are one of the more interesting and fun teams to think about going into the 2022 offseason. Mike McDaniel was a really, really good head coach hire. He's going to be a great head coach for Tua Tagovailoa, who's going into his third year in the NFL. I think Mike McDaniel is going to find a lot of success here, and it's going to be interesting to see who they draft, who they sign in free agency, what they attack, because they do have a lot of room for improvement. But with Mike McDaniel, they also have a lot of ceiling that they can hit with the players they already have. So with that being said, let's get into the Miami Dolphins in this offseason. What's up, guys? I'm Tyler Coker, and I'm your host for today's episode of Today with Tyler. I hope you enjoy. First, I'll go right into the free agents just as we normally do. So their key free agents this year are Will Fuller, the wide receiver, who really didn't play much for them, so I can't imagine him coming back. Emmanuel Ogbah, who is their leader in sacks for the last 2 years, so you don't really want to see him go. Jacoby Brissett, who probably won't come back purely because you don't need another veteran quarterback when Tua is kind of edging toward veteran himself with the amount of experience he has. Phillip Lindsay, the running back, who is one of their 4 running backs that they cycled in. Nobody really found success, so wouldn't be surprised if he didn't come back, but also I think it would be nice if he did. Justin Coleman, the corner, he's going to be leaving, and he is one of the starting cornerbacks, so I think it would be important that they bring him back. And Elandon Roberts, one of their linebackers, and Mike Gesicki, one of their best receiving threats and their tight end number 1. So they have a lot of free agents, but with that being said, let's get into their offense. I personally really like Tua Tagovailoa. I think he's a good quarterback, and I'm working on a full film analysis to kind of wrap it all together and show everybody why I think Tua has a chance to be a potential franchise quarterback, whether it be Miami or elsewhere if they get fed up. I think they picked a really good coach for Tua. I think he's just a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo and also left-handed. So taking someone who had to work with Jimmy Garoppolo, giving him a better version that's younger, I have a lot of faith that this is going to be a good team. He isn't the problem because when you watch his games, he's very similar to Drew Brees in a lot of ways, but he doesn't have an offensive line. So we'll get into that. But first, his wide receiver core. They really just could not throw the ball. Jalen Waddle turned out to be a really good pick. He turned out and was a good Alabama wide receiver who already had experience with Tua Tagovailoa, so that was a really good pick in terms of skill, in terms of fit with Mike McDaniel, luckily. Jalen Waddle is going to be able to be not Deebo Samuel per se, but an adaptation of Deebo Samuel's role. So I think watching Jalen Waddle progress from a rookie wide receiver to a little bit more of a hybrid who's just going to get the ball in his hands is going to be very fun as an NFL fan. I always want to see somebody kind of change their role and expand what football is, and that's what Jalen Waddle's going to have to do. Will Fuller was hurt all year, so they couldn't really have much of a deep threat from him, and they don't have really any good wide receivers after that. Devontae Parker's okay, I guess, but in the end, it's just not a good unit. And it doesn't help that Mike Gesicki, the number 2 target in the entire passing game, might be leaving. He doesn't fit Mike McDaniel's system at all. He just is kind of his own guy, so I could see their tight end room kind of being emptied because they don't have any good tight ends behind Mike Gesicki, and if he doesn't come back, they don't have any at all. They also don't have a running game, which is extremely painful, especially as someone who likes to see a running game behind a young quarterback. They averaged just 3.5 yards per rush this year, which was terrible. It was the second worst in the entire NFL, if we're being exact. So they could really use a running back because their personnel wasn't great behind that bad offensive line. So I would love to see them take Kenneth Walker III out of Michigan State. I'm very high on Kenneth Walker, but if they don't take him, I could see them taking pretty much anyone in the 4th round, such as Rashad White, James Cook, or Dameon Pierce. Any sort of running game would be nice. But ideally, they'll take someone who's a little bit more shifty and agile and a little bit more like Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon and all these running backs you see in San Francisco because Mike McDaniel is going to try to recreate what he's comfortable with. And those are some fast guys. So don't be surprised if they attack free agency for all those 49ers backs that aren't playing right now but might end up getting some chances in Miami. And then we're going to talk about their offensive line. They're literally ranked 32 in the entire NFL by PFF. And the eye test supports that. They were horrible, and really the only player that's salvageable is right guard Robert Hunt. You don't really want your right guard to be your best offensive lineman, especially when you have a young quarterback who needs to be kept healthy because he's had health issues in the past. They really just need a full reset, and hopefully Mike McDaniel notices that and attacks offensive line in the draft, because while it's not a rich offensive line class, there's enough talent to get by, and there's plenty of talent if you really, really, really need an offensive line. Now let's get into their defense. Their secondary was pretty effective. They were 9th in pass yards per attempt in the NFL and only allowed a QB rating of 85.4. And they were average in yards per game, but that's more because they were always on the field because the offense couldn't get anything going. So they really have a lot of talent, but ideally they could kind of replace Byron Jones, who is costing a lot of money for not that much potential. But luckily, Xavier Howard is going to be around for quite a while, including 2025, so they don't have to worry about their number one corner, but they could use a little bit of depth after that. And then we get to their lackluster box. They allowed 4.4 rush yards per attempt, which really isn't good, and that's mostly because their entire linebacker core is really weak. Jalen Phillips also didn't burst into the scene exactly how the Dolphins might have planned, seeing that he was a first-round pick, and if I'm not mistaken, the first edge rusher taken in the entire NFL draft last year. So they really could have used some extra production from an edge rusher, and they didn't get any from pick 18. So that's unfortunate, but luckily they have Emmanuel Ogbah and Christian Wilkins, who are both good players, but if Ogbah leaves, there really isn't much to work with aside from Wilkins, and that's really not a good situation to be in as a brand new head coach. So without Brian Flores' blitzing and good game planning, you're really going to see a lot of weak box. You're not going to see a lot of good play because they were ranked 4th in pass rush and 11th in run defense, even with such bad players. That's because Brian Flores was a really, really, really good defensive coach. So Mike McDaniel has to hire a good defensive coordinator who's going to be able to take advantage of the talents that they have, use a lot of blitzing and people like Javon Holland, in order to actually be a good unit, which I think Miami can be. So hopefully they can blitz their way into the pressure, but they need linebackers bad and certainly a defensive tackle, and Byron Jones' replacement would be nice. So I have their team needs listed as offensive tackle, offensive guard, offensive center, linebacker, and DT. They have quite a few needs that are pressing, but after that they are kind of decent, so I'm interested to see what Mike McDaniel can do with this team because they really do have a good chance of being a good team. It's just a matter of, can a coach fix the mess that he was given? So Mike McDaniel, good luck. I hope Miami does well, especially Tua Tagovailoa. He doesn't deserve the hate he's been given so far. So good luck, Miami. Let's see what they do this offseason. Thank you for listening.